Hey guys, so the story I have for you this week. Okay, so I was on my bike the other day, right? So I was coming home, and obviously, when you're on the bike, traffic is not a concept you're used to. So I'm riding down, and I'm approaching a red robot, so I can see I'm going to stop, and I kind of try and get in between the two cars that are parked at the robot. So I get there and I really need to fart, right? So I just, lift myself off the bike a little bit and I like let her up. But like you can hear this thing is, I mean, I could hear that it was loud. Anyway, so, I drop. And then like out of the corner of my eye, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this car that's next to me, I don't think their window was closed and I don't think their music was loud. So I actually think he heard me. And I was just like, oh, okay, like, do I get embarrassed by that or do I just kind of, pretend like I don't see him and leave? Anyway, the robot changed and I left. And as I took off, the like just the notion to the consequence of sin kind of started making a bit more sense to me. So it was really fun, and that's what I'd really like to share with you this week. Anyway, so the thoughts went like this. Sometimes when you fart, a fart can be loud or it can be soft. Sometimes you fart and like you don't smell nothing, and sometimes you fart and it's just like, it's like you've released something into the atmosphere. But it's this, and it's the exact like, you guys, it's exactly the same with the consequence of sin in our lives. Sometimes sometimes we'll sin, and the people around us will be aware of that sin, and they kind of have a chance to react. Sometimes we sin and everyone around us is oblivious, call it sinning in secret, call it good at hiding it, whatever you want to call it. But like that's 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 what happens. And when you're in a group of people, I mean, if you fart and you're in a group of people, and it's really loud, like unless it's very clear that it was you, people kind of start looking around to see, oh, okay, well, who was it? And then secondly, they look around to see, okay, well, how will people react? And the same thing happens with sin. Just in terms of the the non-smelly and the smelly, sometimes people are not necessarily seeing it, but the consequence or the effect of what it is that we've done affect people in like sometimes they're oblivious. They don't know that they're breathing in air that has been mixed with your fart, you know what I mean? Or farts, guys, we're talking about farts. Or with your sin. And sometimes, what we've done just leaves such a stench that people get, like people can't help but comment or can't help but say anything. And it's and I really, it just got me thinking, there's so many things that we do. Well, everything that we do, really, our life is about consequence. Every moment of your life, you're living out a consequence of a decision you made, whether it's good or bad. And I think it's amazing just how gracious God is in terms of how we sometimes have to deal with these things. And I think the heart for this week is really just, as much as the things that we do, as much as they can influence our current situation, or even if it is only for a second, as much as all of that sits, I just want to encourage you, like, at least when a fart is loud or when a fart is smelly, like 5-10 minutes later, people are over it because it doesn't smell anymore. Or and sometimes, you do have those people that will kind of remind you that, yo, remember that one time you farted, dog? Like it was in the middle of everyone and it was so, like, it was so real. You just let rip. And you have those people that remind you. You have people that will maybe say something. And in sin, it's the same thing. People are really quick to remind us of the mistakes that we made, or the consequences of bad decisions, or maybe it wasn't necessarily a bad decision. Maybe just it wasn't the right decision. Well, if it's not a right decision for that moment, I guess it's a bad decision. But I mean, things like that it happens, and we find ourselves constantly having to defend either a choice that we've made, or sometimes we just find ourselves having to kind of just live through the embarrassment of the moment. And if that's where you are, I want to encourage you in two ways. First of all, to really just say, look, it happens to everyone. Really, it happens to everyone. And I hope that if you get to a place where, or if you're in a space where you just feel like you can't anymore, that you've got somebody in your life to talk to about it. And secondly, I really I think the biggest takeaway for me is really just that I think we will never actually know just how, when God says my grace is sufficient for you, just how true that is. Like the grace of God in situations like that, may it empower you to push through, may it empower you to overcome whatever action is needed in that moment, because of what the cross, because of what happened at the cross, because of Calvary, God looks at us and he sees so much more. And it's so easy to stay focused, on whatever happened in that moment. So it's so easy to stay focused in our example. It's easy to just kind of zoom in on the fact that, this person will always remember that I let one rip, and that's how it came out, or they smelt it and nobody knew, but actually everybody knew it was me. It's easy to zoom in on that. There's such a freedom, and there's such a joy in accepting that moment happened, and kind of just moving on from it, because the reality is that the consequences will still be there. Sometimes he's gracious enough to leave us with no consequences, but sometimes, most of the times, we still have to kind of live through the consequence of what we did in that moment, regardless of the fact that God has forgiven us, regardless of the fact that we have to forgive ourselves. But his grace is truly sufficient, and I think that's the journey that I've been on, like this past week, just as I've been chewing on this fart message. It's so funny if you think about it. Hey, like there's so many similarities between farting and sinning. I mean, if you're in the company of somebody you like, you don't want to fart. When you're in the company of people you like, or those people you want to impress, you don't want to make it known that you have weaknesses or that you sin or so. So you walk away and kind of do it over there, and then make up an excuse to kind of go to the corner and then come back later. Sometimes you only let out like a little bit to see, okay, is this like a silent killer, or is it, or is it fine? And if you don't smell anything, then you think, oh, okay, no, I'm good, I can release the rest. I know you're laughing, but we all do it. And it's the same. Sometimes we're like, okay, well, we know that there's a boundary that's been put at a certain place, and we're like, okay, well, how do I approach this? And we kind of only want to go a little bit just to test our waters, or to test out the waters to see, okay, well, how are things? And then when we see that, oh, okay, well, I wasn't hurt that much, or, the consequence doesn't seem too big there, then we feel like, okay, cool, we're allowed to throw ourselves into that path of sin. And I think a big thing for me in the Christian walk is always just this notion that God says, be holy for I'm a holy God. Like so many times we fall short of that. Thank God for Romans 3:23. But so many times we fall short of that, and I'm so just aware that other than focusing on the fact that I'm constantly falling short, let me focus on the fact that his grace is sufficient for me, because it's in drawing closer to him, in focusing on him, in zooming in on him, and what he did for me, that I will find the need to sin less. So have a good week. May you discover, may you have new eyes just in terms of seeing the grace of God and how active it is in your life. And I'll see you guys next week. Okay, and it is cold here in Pretoria. I don't know where this cold comes from. Anyway, okay, cool. Bye.